All right. So, first of all, before I jump into what I wanted to talk about tonight, I wanted to thank you who are out there who watch my videos because if you're watching this video, this is the second video, the second attempt of me trying to do this because I watched the last one and it wasn't very good. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think I ever quite like my videos. I have this desire to to become part of the conversation. I listen to YouTube videos all the time, so um, I just want to do a little talking instead of listening. But um, I think my biggest problem with this is it's just me and my computer, and I'm much. I think I'm wired to talk with humans and have conversation, real conversation. But anyway, so I'm gonna give it another shot again. I wanted to try to find a way to dive more into the Bible because God knows we need it, and also combine social commentary. I think that happens sometimes naturally for me anyway. I guess when I read the Bible, I'm constantly reminded about situations that are present day. And so what I wanted to do was deal with Acts chapter 4 and dive into what I think is interesting for our time and try to bring that out as we go through this. Before I dive into chapter 4, though, let me just set it up. Chapter 3 is Peter and John go to the temple. Now, this is after the day of Pentecost. So, this is the beginning of Acts. And so, what ends up happening is um, the authorities basically thought they could squash the message of Jesus by killing him. And this is the beginning of them understanding that failed. And so Peter and John go to the temple after the day of Pentecost. And so they're going to the temple and they run into a lame man and they heal the lame guy. And so you thought, well, okay, so the the temple people, the elites, the authorities of the day believed all that stuff was over, and here come Peter and John doing exactly the same stuff that they did. They were doing Jesus-like things, right? And Peter gets up and he speaks at the temple, and what he does, actually, chapter 3, when he talks in the temple, that's one of my favorite parts of the Bible. Um, when he addresses the crowd, it's become one of my favorite parts because of something that he says there, and I'm not going to dive into that, but it's very profound, and I think people miss it. So extra credit in the comments if you can look back at chapter 3 and figure out what I'm referring to. But so it's on the heels of that chapter 4 begins. So I'm going to start it now, 4 verse 1. As Peter and John were speaking to the people, the priest and the captain of the temple and the Sadducees came up to them. They were indignant because Peter and John were teaching the people and announcing in Yeshua the resurrection of the dead. So they grabbed them and put them in jail until the next day, for it was already evening. But many who heard the message believed, and the number of the men who came to about 5,000. On the next day, the rulers and elders and Torah scholars were gathered together in Jerusalem. Annas, the Cohen, the high priest, was there, and Caiaphas, and John, and Alexander, and all those who were of high priestly descent. When they had placed Peter and John in their midst, they began to inquire, "By what power or in what name did you do this?" Then Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit, said to them, "Rulers and elders of the people, if we are on trial today for a work done for a sick man, as to how this fellow was healed, let it be known to all of you and to all the people of Israel that by the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, whom you have crucified, whom God raised from the dead, this one stands before you whole. This Yeshua is the stone rejected by you, the builders, that has become the chief cornerstone. There is salvation in no one else, for there is no other name under heaven given to mankind by which we must be saved." Now, when they saw the boldness of Peter and John and figured out that they were laymen without training, they were amazed. They began to realize that these men had been with Yeshua, but seeing the healed men standing with them, they had nothing to say in response. When they had ordered Peter and John to go out of the council chamber, they began to confer with one another, saying, "What shall we do with these men? For indeed it's obvious to everyone living in Jerusalem that a remarkable miracle has happened through them, and we cannot deny it. But so it won't spread any further among the people, let's warn them not to speak any more to anyone in this name." So they called them in and ordered them not to speak or teach at all in the name of Yeshua. But Peter and John replied, "Whether it is right in the sight of God to listen to you rather than to God, you decide. For we cannot stop speaking about what we have seen and heard." After threatening them again, they let them go, finding no way they could punish them on account of the people, because they all were glorifying God for what had happened. For the man in whom this miracle of healing had happened was more than 40 years old. So I'm going to stop it right there. But that part was what I was wanting to really jump onto. And so notice that those who had an issue with Peter and John were not the general people. They were not the common people. In fact, there is a division then and now between people of power and people who are just average people. And that is, I think, what I want to sort of emphasize with this, because those who came after Peter and John were the captains, the Sadducees, and it even names them when it talks about Annas and Caiaphas and John and Alexander. Now, I don't really know who John and Alexander are, but they must have had some status. Rulers of the day, politicians, if you will, of the day. And so, in our times, we often will argue, I guess, or a narrative will be thrust into the populace in regards to justice. The left will often say that corporations receive justice, or that there's an imbalance in the economic system, which is unjust. They will say that there is racial imbalance and therefore injustice in the system, and they'll stand upon this concept that injustice exist in our society. Oftentimes, I think what happens is that we are subject to hearing something that sounds true, and it is true. I mean, the things that they say have a ring of truth because there's truth within what they say. The problem is that here in this story, in this situation that happened in the past, and also I think what happens today, it is often those that have the power that are the ones that are perpetrating the injustice. The difference isn't black and white. That's a distraction. A white person who's poor doesn't receive justice as the same in the same manner as a rich black person or a rich black person who has connections. Um, what we have in our society is an imbalance between those who have power and wield it and those who don't. And so we see here an example of this where Peter and John are just fishermen, right? And they came to a public space. They came to the temple, and what did they do? They did a good thing for somebody. Don't get caught up in the fact that it was a miracle that the guy was able to walk. Forget that for a minute, but just understand that what they ended up doing was something good for somebody. Okay? Now, in our society, in society then and even society today, that should be a good thing. In fact, we all look at that as a good thing. But what ends up happening is that they end up getting arrested for it. They end up getting arrested for it because of what they say. And so what we see is that, was it the good thing that they did, or was it the fact that they had something to say? The speech that they said was what got them in trouble. And the reason it got them in trouble was because it went against the narrative that the elites wanted out there. So if you push something that is contrary to the narrative that the elites are attempting to put into the public sphere, you're going to be in their crosshairs. This is what we have going on today. We have cancel culture, what we're referring to as cancel culture. And so what I want to emphasize is that this is not new. I mean, we may have this term that we have coined now that we use to describe it, but what we are describing is abuse of power. It's abuse of power. The powerful who have the ability to shape the narrative don't want to be challenged. And when you come at them, even in a country like the United States, where it codified in the Constitution is this concept of freedom of speech, that still does not matter, because where there's a will, there's a way, even for evil people. And so that's what I wanted to sort of focus in on here, is that there is no new thing under the sun. This is one of my favorite sayings that comes out of the Bible. There's no new thing under the sun. Humans are humans. And the issues that we have now, there might be some differences in how, technology, I suppose, and things like that. But the very basics of humanity, the trials, the issues, the problems that we are dealing with, we've been dealing with these things as a creature on this earth since we've been around. And that is the fact that humans are sinful creatures, and those in power are going to abuse those below them. And those in power don't want to lose that power. And I think that's what we're seeing in this specific situation. So when somebody comes out and they have a voice, if they have a platform of any type, and they use that in a way that goes against the elite's narrative, there will be hell to pay for that. And so Peter and John in this situation are attempting, what we're seeing is cancel culture of the of that specific time frame. Um, and it's, if you focus in on what the people say, and this is something, think about this. This is something that, um, when it comes to motivation, sometimes you got to look past what people say. Optics is everything for a politician, and these people here are nothing but politicians that they're dealing with. They are people in power, and they are subject to the people's whims ultimately, but what they want to do is to manipulate the people. And this is a Jewish culture, and if you think about what's going on here. So the Israelites, the Jews, the people of Judea of the time are, one, the seed of Abraham. This is their culture. This is what defines them. They are the seed of Abraham. And they are under the law of Moses and are awaiting one like Moses to come, the Messiah. What should have happened if people were interested in truth was that the idea of Jesus coming, the idea of this one being the Messiah, even if you don't believe it, the motivation should have been to find out if the Messiah came or not. Focus in on what the people are doing here, or the elites. Focus in on what the elites are doing here. So instead of looking at what happened and saying and inquiring about Jesus from Peter and John, the mission that they have is to keep others from hearing about Jesus. So it says, let's see, when they had ordered Peter, I'm in verse 15, when they had ordered Peter and John to go out of the council chamber, they began to confer with one another, saying, "What shall we do with these men? For indeed it's obvious to everyone living in Jerusalem," that's the people, right? The all of a sudden this information out there, there's a counter narrative to the people that we are wanting to control, that a remarkable miracle has happened through them, and we cannot deny it. So there's truth out there, and we cannot undo that truth that's taken place. 17 continues, "But so it won't spread any further among the people, let's warn them not to speak any more to anyone in his name." So they're wanting to cancel them. And isn't that what we see in our society, right? So if you take somebody, the one that's coming to mind right now, so you could cancel Dr. Seuss because he's dead, he can't fight back. I don't even really understand the Mr. Potato Head thing. The Gina Carano situation is one in which, so she was basically pressured multiple times and decided not to give in to that pressure. It didn't seem to me that what she was saying was even aggressively counter to the left's narrative. She was canceled because she wouldn't because she wouldn't go along with it. She wouldn't play ball. She was independent and decided that uh, she has her own thoughts and feelings about things and would actually, like to use her own brain instead of being told what to think and what to say. And for that, she was effectively canceled in uh, in her career uh, right now. And that's the threat, right? That so they what did they do? They threatened Peter and John with somewhat similar. It always starts and then moves up, right? The one thing that we need to consider for us, and we know that, in fact, I think coming up soon we'll see that Stephen, in it looks like chapter 6, uh, so Stephen is killed. And so you see what happens here is that it starts with canceling one's voice, and then it moves to canceling them physically. That's what we need to be really concerned about, because what you do is, one, you create a scenario in which you justify your anger by telling everybody that the people that you're upset with are horrible people. Right now, you say you call them racist, sexist, homophobic, Nazi, these sort of things, so that the powerful can then justify abuse. Right now, it looks like it's just stripping them of their voice. But what happens next? What is the next step? And people can say, well, that's just being, that's just being pessimistic, or how ultra negative. The problem is that this is what happened here. Okay, this is what happened in Germany. The German people aren't terrible people. What happens is that a narrative gets built up, and they end up thinking they're the good guys, and that the good motive that they have justifies their terrible actions. This is something that I focused on before. I said that, if you watched the Avengers, Thanos believed that he was the good guy, that what he was doing was saving the universe. He wasn't destroying half the universe, he was saving the other half of the universe. And this is a problem when the ends justify the means. So, and this is what you can do. You can talk yourself into this. And we saw this with Germany in the 1930s and 40s. They talked themselves into a scenario in which they began to cancel people. They created the boogeyman, the people that they wanted to, the scapegoats that they wanted to use to justify all of their problems. We see that today, right? What it is that the ultra powerful need scapegoats because they're the ones that are in charge. They don't want you looking at them when there's injustice in the land. It's not that the people that are in charge are to blame. They're trying really hard. It's all these racists out there. It's all these homophobes that are. It's this culture. It's this privilege that's out there, that of these certain groups that keep the other groups down. It's a divide and conquer strategy. So the people that have the power and are abusing it don't have to face the ramifications for their abuse. They want the power, but they don't want the responsibility that goes along with it. Um, let's see here. So again, the thing too, just to reiterate this, these are Jews that are supposed to be waiting for the Messiah. Here's somebody who's offering evidence that the Messiah has come. And their reaction to it is to say, a miracle happened through them. We cannot deny it, but we want to shut them up to make sure others don't realize the truth. If you are the one, when it comes to conversation, when it comes to arguments, when it comes to, everybody's passionate. Everybody has their view on how things are supposed to work, okay? When it comes to, I've spent a lot of time listening to debates, okay? So I kind of have an idea about how that works. If you have the better point, you want the person that doesn't have as good of an argument to speak. You want to juxtapose your great argument against theirs. Bring their argument and then compare your great argument so everybody can see the difference. If you want to shut the other person up, it's more than likely because your argument's terrible. You don't have the justification, the logical justification for your position. And when you combine somebody who doesn't have the logical justification for their position, but they have the power to shut other people up, that's a really bad mix. Because the problem is that they're attempting to justify their power and they have no logical justification to do it. So they can just shut you up. And this is the problem that I think that we as a society are having, because the people that control the narrative are the ones that are saying they are the good people. The problem is that if you're the good people, you wouldn't be shutting up other people. That's the problem. And you wouldn't be able to shut them up if you weren't the powerful. You can't be the people who claim to be speaking truth to power when you are shutting people down who are speaking, and when you're wielding power. That means you are the power. You're not speaking truth to power, you are the power. This is something I've said before, but it bears repeating. It bears repeating. We have to look at our society and who is it that has and wields the power? Are they justified to do that? We don't know, because anytime somebody stands up with an argument against a position, society comes at them. I'll give you, and it's consistency, right? So I was thinking about this today, is walking through a business. Everybody's got their masks on, and we have a free country, so that's what we're told. And so if you have a business, you should, if somebody, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't think it makes sense to wear a mask. Up until the middle of this, of the last year, you wore a mask if you were sick. That was how it worked. Or if you're in an operating room and you don't want spit and hair or whatever to fall into an open cavity. It was never this idea of keeping germs from spreading to each other. So now we've got this narrative where masks are saving other people's lives, and you look like a heel if you're not wearing a mask. So businesses are in these positions where they're going to either implement a policy or not, right? You see the states are arguing about whether there should be mandates and this sort of thing. So, but businesses can still do what they want. Target has said that they, to enter their store, you have to have a mask. Whatever. I don't care for Target. That's fine by me. I'm not going in a Target. But other stores have said the same thing. It's their right as a business. If they say you have to wear a mask to enter, that's their thing, and the government would support that. Okay, so but what about the cake owner that doesn't want to make the gay wedding cake? Now, wherever you stand on the issue is completely irrelevant. The point isn't where you stand. The point is, where does the business stand? Does the business have a right or not? And who has the right to say that? And why is it that one company can have the right to be free and the other company doesn't have the right to be free? I'll tell you why it's that way. It's because the companies are free to comply with the elite's narrative. They're not free to comply with the elites. They're not free to go against the elite's narrative. That's what we see. We see where this cancel culture is a manifestation of a much larger problem, which is to say that those in charge are dictating to us whether we have the right to be autonomous individuals and speak. Is Jesus the Messiah? I can't make you believe Jesus is the Messiah, right? Should you be able to say that I can't say Jesus is the Messiah? I mean, what if the government says that it's in everybody's best interest to keep everybody safe, that people don't say it? I mean, under the guise of safety, they're pushing law, or I don't even know what you call it. I don't know if it's even law, but a lot of people are complying with what they're telling us to do, and they're justifying it through safety. So I mean, in regards to this concept, about speech and about compliance and about religion. Think about it in terms, let's take it away from Christianity. Take it to Islam. Okay? If you go to an Islamic country, what they may ask you to do is to comply. Instead of it being where you can't speak against a narrative, they may demand that you be pro-narrative. I mean, we actually see that here in our country. A lot of people get pressured in regards to being pro-homosexual or being pro-trans or being pro, you just name it. If there's a Black Lives Matter as an example, if you're against the actual organization that now from has now come out and shown that they hadn't give any of that money to black organizations. It went to the Democrat Party, which I mean I thought that was a given. I didn't but if you go against that, then somehow you're against black people. So you see how the optics work. But let's take the Islamic countries as an example. If you're how many people live in an Islamic country, but they're not, I mean, do they even believe that the doctrine? Did they believe Muhammad, you know, that he was this great individual and this perfect, you know, human, that the prophet, that God chose to be the prophet? Did they believe that narrative? Um, I mean, the thing about speech is that, and how important it is that all you have to do to be a Muslim is to say the saying, and I forget what it's called, but basically that Allah is, there's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. I mean, you say that and you're a Muslim. Do you have to, believe it? You just have to comply. That's the thing. You just have to comply. It is a power move. It is, I mean, and this is what we see here, right? Don't get it twisted when it comes to the United States, as if because it's a secular message that somehow we are not still looking at justification. It doesn't have to be a religious justification. All through history, governments have used religion, like what's being done here in Acts 4. But a secular narrative still needs to be justified too. The secular power in the United States is using morality. You're not a racist, are you? You're not against those people, are you? That's what they're doing. Because they're basically saying, if you don't bow down, if you don't comply, then you are an immoral person. And the COVID thing's this way too, right? Only an immoral person would want to put people in harm's way. It's just a mask. Wear the mask. I mean, the next thing is going to be, it's just a shot that was created in a lab and rushed out for your health. Put this strange concoction in your arm. Look, if people want to do it, then do it. I mean, but this is the thing. So there's always the message that's sold, and I wish that people would wake up to what's going on, because it never ends. The elites never stop. They said 15, I mean, it started with 15 days to slow the spread. And then, the latest thing was, well, as soon as we get everybody, as soon as we get the vaccine accessible to everybody, we can return back to normal life. And we see the narrative now. They're fighting. I mean, you've got some states that are getting rid of the mask mandate, and people are upset about it. But the vaccine, you guys said, they went from saying you don't have to wear a mask to saying you now wear, we think 2 masks, and you got Biden wearing 2 masks. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, and then you see they don't do it themselves in private, because they forget they're not in the habit of wearing a mask, because they don't wear masks. The elites don't do the rules they're putting on everybody else. They don't play the same games that they don't apply the same rules to themselves that they apply to us. And I'm not saying we can change it. I don't know. I'm just pointing out there's no new thing under the sun. And the one thing, if I would ask, if you watch this video to this point, don't participate in beating your neighbor over the head. Don't be the elites here. Don't do their job for them. They don't have your best interest at heart. Don't shut your neighbors down. Don't be on board with cancel culture. You should be on board with people being able to freely speak, especially if there are people out there doing good things like Peter and John did. Why would you want to shut them down? Why would you want them in jail? Why would you want to hurt them? And this is what we have to grapple with. There is a narrative out there that is being sold to us. And if you say, oh, I disagree, I think that they actually are in it to help us and they are concerned about our safety. Okay, I can understand that. But then why are they shutting down opposition? You're going to tell me that the people that are shutting down opposition are also doing that for your health? I think it keeps ramping up. And so, again, you can't be the people that are speaking truth to power if you are the power. And I think that's something that we need to, especially if you're a Christian. I keep going back to this because I'm like, Christians that voted for Biden are now, I guess I saw the letter that they sent saying, well, Biden, we're disappointed that Biden did the abortion stuff. I don't know what planet you live on. I honestly, the politician, it's weird. Biden didn't even lie about this, really. I don't even know if the people who claim to be evangelical, who voted for Biden, I don't know that I even think that they believe what they're saying. I almost think they're liars. I mean, how do you not? I think they're just justifying the fact if Biden was able to get to do this without public knowledge, knowing about it, I don't think you'd ever saw that letter. I just think that everybody is concerned with optics. There's so many liars out there, and it's difficult to tell one. Everybody's claiming the moral high ground here. Well, someone's not correct. Someone's not correct. And so my thought is that if you're a Christian and you believe this is the truth, then can we talk about what this is saying? And that's what I'm focused on. Let's dive into the word and let's see what it says about power dynamics and about who's in control. And I just want to say, if you are somebody who votes left and you're a Christian, it doesn't bother you that the left seems to be always against on the things that seem to be concrete in the Bible. They just sell you this idea of humanity and you go along with it, and that doesn't wake you up to. I mean, because someone's being lied to. Someone's being lied to. There's a narrative out there. Someone's being lied to. And maybe it's me, and maybe I'm the one believing the lies. And so if that's the case, then you shouldn't want to shut my terrible opinion down. You should want to juxtapose. You want your opinion to counteract mine. And I've said that just, in this video that, this is something that we need to, you don't want to shut down conversation. You want to explain why you're right. You want to help change people's mind. You don't want them to just comply and say that you're right when they don't think you're right. Do you? I mean, who wants that, right? You want to change hearts. So, anyway, that's all I got. So I will, until next time, see you guys later.